준비합수요. 그놈 주모 정현. Hello, my name is Jonghyun and I'm from South Korea. Today I'm going to introduce how the Korean court registration operation system is like. There might be some advantage and disadvantage in the system, but anyhow, you may adopt some of the advantages into the Cambodian judicial systems. The Korean court may register various items. So the real estate can be one item and commercial entities can be another one, and the ships, factory foundations, mining foundations, and standing timber might also be objects of registration. So okay, let's start with the registration on the real estate. And I'm going to show you another picture. This is a photo taken some other countries. Okay, the Korean situation is not really serious. This will not happen in Korea. But anyway, someone has ownership on the house, and he won't go out. So the government and Korean local municipal has no a way to let him out for many years. But this photo shows how the registration of the ownership is so important. Usually, Korean court has jurisdictions under registrations, but sometimes a separate registration office was installed by the Supreme Court. Anyway, in most of the cases, a jurisdiction shall be decided by the address. If a jurisdiction is decided by the two or more cities, it will be decided by otherwise which office has jurisdictions. The Supreme Court may ask a court without jurisdiction to proceed on operations to other court. Anyway, the court is responsible for all the registrations. I show you this is like a border between Belgium and Holland. Sometimes international border divides one house, or sometimes they divide a table. So this is really extreme, but actually it shows how the jurisdiction is important. And next one is a satellite photo of Saemangam area. Saemangam is a huge landfill area, and the seawall installed in the middle of the ocean is the largest in the world. But houses and factories in there was treated as a ship before land registrations. So the Korean National Police has no authority on the car accidents or the criminal activity. So the National Coast Guard was responsible for that area before land registrations. So this shows how the land registration is important. So usually registration documents are so important, so they cannot be moved outside of the court. But anyway, there are some application related documents. They are not really registration documents. They can be moved to the outside of the court on a disaster or other court order. But they should be repaired and replaced if there are any damage on the registration documents. And sometimes registered information might be closed. If registry documents are replaced, the old remaining documents shall be preserved forever. Otherwise, there might be later on people might be attempt of forgery. If they found any duplicated registry, they might close one of the duplicated informations, but the remaining part shall be preserved forever. And who will do the registration in Korea? Usually a district court, a branch office of a court, a registration office in Korea say they shall proceed the registration operations of real estate of other items also. I have already mentioned the court is responsible of the registrations, But actually, the person who proceed the operations are the government officers. Usually, Korean government officer has 10 different ranks. Usually, grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6, and grade 7 will do the registration operations. In case of any force majeure of movement of office, the registration operation might be suspended for the time it was hindered. If a registrar is replaced with the applicant as a family members, the operation shall be proceeded with 2 other witnesses, and this is designed for the fairness of the operations. Next issue is financial guarantee. If there is any error on the registrations, Korean government shall pay for the damages during the registrations. But the registrar, they shall not have enough money for the pay for all those laws. So Korean government adopt an insurance system for the prevention of unintentional loss of registrar. You might have already know that there was like 2 categories of like real estate registrations. One is land register, and the other is building register, which might be pretty similar in all the continental legal system. Another interesting thing is factory foundations can be a target of can be an object of registrations. Usually, the owner of a factory may establish factory foundations with 1 factory or 2 or more factories, and he or she may make a dam the object of a mortgage. And the same should apply where 2 or more factories belong to the factory foundations, and the owner of each factory might be different. But factory foundation shall be deemed as 1 piece of real property. Where a factory foundation is located in the jurisdictions of several registration offices, or where the several factories constituting 1 single factory foundations are located in the jurisdiction of several registration offices, the head of immediately higher court, which has jurisdictions of the registration office, shall designate a competent registration office upon request. So sometimes the Supreme Court itself might decide which registration office has a jurisdiction. Mining foundations may be comprised of mining rights and all or part of those enumerated as follows, which belongs to the identical mining rights holder in relation to the mining industry. The land, buildings, and other structures and machineries, apparatus, or other appurtenances. The movable then might be registered at the registration office or an administration agency, such as the aircraft, vessels, automobiles, etc. And superficies or other rights to use land, and rights of lease where the lessor consents. And other intellectual property rights can be a target of mining foundations. And 1 mining foundation will be treated as real estate. And standing timber registrations. So sometimes the trees, that means a standing timber shall be deemed immovable like a property. So the many trees will be treated as 1 real estate. And the owner of a standing timber may transfer the title of a standing timber separately from the land, or may offer it as a subject matter of mortgage. The disposal of ownership or superficies on the land shall not affect the rights in standing timber thereon. Where standing timber has been cut, a mortgage on the standing timber shall remain. Sometimes a citizen or government office entities might request a registry certificate. So in these days, most of the people in Korean territory get the certificate through online. So they simply need to hook up into the internet, and then they can open the web browsers, and they simply type the internet registry office. So most of the certificate, they can simply get the certificate through the printer, but still most people get the certificate through the kiosk, which is already installed in many court offices. And sometimes registered informations might be transferred to the other administrative agencies. So the head of an administrative agency may request a provision of registration information data after examinations by the head of the relevant central administrative agency and approval from the Minister of National Court Administrations. If necessary for the processing of the affairs under the jurisdictions, anyway, provided that the head of a central administrative agency may consult with the Minister of National Court Administrations to request the provision of a registration information data when the consultation is established. Sometimes anti-forgery watermarking technology is used on the certificate. This is an example of a real estate certificate of land, and you may see the gray ribbon on the bottom of a certificate, and it is composed of many many single dots. So if you make photocopy, there might be some mark that okay, this is copied and this is not original. And the paper, the certificate paper itself has a watermark of a symbol of National Court, the Supreme Court. And some of the registrable rights into the Korean registration office are as follows. So Article 3 of the Real Estate Registration Act says as follows: the ownership can be registered, and sacrifices and easements and rights to lease on a deposit basis, and mortgages, pledgeable rights, and security rights over claims and leasehold interest. All those 9 rights can be registered into the court registration office. Next slide has a photo of the price change of the real estate in Korea. So the price was decreasing in the year of 2012, but it started to increase slightly in the year of 2015. But actually, there was a constant growth since 2017 up to today. So in order to guarantee a transparency and the real estate market, the Korean government imposed a duty to apply for real estate registrations after transfer of ownership. So any person who concludes a contract for the transfer of real estate, he or she shall apply for registration of a transfer of ownership within 60 days. It's almost 2 months from the date prescribed in one of the following subparagraphs, but provided that the same shall not apply where the contract is cancelled, rescinded, or nullified. Anyway, the subparagraph says where the parties to the contracts bear quid pro quo obligations with each other, the date on which the performance of the consideration is complete. Where only one of the parties to the contract bears on obligations, the date on which the contract takes effect. Anyway, this system will increase the transparency of Korean real estate market. Korean government also adopt a approval seal of contract system. When somebody is applying for the registration of ownership, transfer for contracts to purchase real estate, an applicant shall submit a contract containing a seal issued by the local or municipal government. The Korean government have also made a special legislations stipulating that the registration of a real estate under the actual title holder's name. So this is to prevent evading execution by the conceals, like a fraudulentary, like a transfer of a real estate and other like concealment and disguise of earning by criminal like activities. And no person shall register any real right to a real estate under the name of a title trustee pursuant to the title trustee agreement. And the next course we show you how the real estate legislation in the Korean court proceeds. Next one is the applicants for the registrations. Unless prescribed otherwise by any act, registration shall be applied jointly by a person who is entitled to file for the registrations and a person obliged to file for the registration. Yeah, usually sometimes they need help from the attorneys. Okay, the next one is a method of applying for registrations. Usually a method in which an applicant or his or her agents go to a registry and submit the documents stating application information and accompanying informations. But sometimes the attorney-in-law are really busy and sometimes they don't really go to the court or the registry. So in this case, one of his staff or the clerk might visit the court instead of attorney. But sometimes the attorney can be a law firm, or law firm is a limited liability or judicial like associations. Or sometimes in Korea there was a paralegal which is called a judicial like a scrivener. Sometimes a judicial scrivener or like a corporation of like a certified judicial scrivener with limited liabilities might be working as attorney in Korean system. But anyway, a clerk who is presenting to the court might be enrolled in advance to the Supreme Court. But anyway, sometimes a clan, a group of family association may be applicant because a lot of mountains in Korea is owned by a group of families associations. So all of the offsprings share the mountains. Sometimes creditor can be applicant with the right of a subrogation of a creditor. So sometimes creditor might apply for registration. Most of the case, registration can be done by the business transactions, but sometimes registrations to the court might be done by an entrustment of a registration by the public sale. When where a public office receives a request from the person entitled to make a registrations, when it issues the deposition of a public sale, it shall, without delay, entrust a registry with the following registrations. So a registration of a transfer of a right due to disposition of a public sale, a cancellation of a registration of rights extinguished due to a disposition of a public sale, the cancelling of a registration of a seizure or registrations of announcement of a public sale concerning disposition on default. The usually registration might be done offline. That is like a traditional registration, but in these days a lot of registration is done by some electronic methods. So traditional registrations is a method in which an applicant or his or her agents goes to a registry and submit documents stating application informations and accompanying informations also. But electronic registration is a method in which an applicant information and accompanying information are sent via a computerized data processing system as prescribed by the Supreme Court regulations. But not all the registration can be done electronically. So there is some limit on this type of registrations. designated by the Minister of Supreme Court Administration. So a lot of registrations are done by electronically, but this system would not be applied to all systems or cases. And Korean government adopt another interesting system. It is like a notification of completions. If a registrar finishes the operations, they should dispatch a certificate of completions. But the certificate has a set of numbers for further registrations. It has passcodes with 15 numbers shall be was attached under the certificate of completions. But court attached a sticker for prevention of leakage on the passcode. So this is it's pretty similar with the passcode, like a table issued at the bank for the security reasons, which prevent applications of an applicant without any right. And for the security reasons, a registrar shall take measures necessary and appropriate for the prevention of leakage and loss of or damage to the information on the completion of registrations, that he or she handles, and the safe management of information on the completion of registrations. Anyway, this is duties of many persons. And another thing is Korean court adopts a provisional registration system. Usually provisional registrations shall be made if a right of claim for the creations or transfer, changes or extinguishment of right corresponding to any of the subparagraph of Article 3 of Real Estate Registration Act is to be preserved. Anyway, the same shall apply where such right of claim is effective when the time comes, is under condition precedence, or is to be determined in the future. And another interesting thing in Korean judicial system is a notification of exercise of security right and period of liquidations. There actually a lot of the creditor do the registrations of provisional a registration of transfer of real estate instead of a mortgage, because the ownership is a lot easier to handle than the mortgage, so they can take back their money from the houses easily. But at the same time, the debtor or the obligator might lose their asset easily. So they had a special regulations on the period of liquidations. So the statute says that in order for a creditor to acquire ownership of secured real estate by exercising a security right under a security contracts, the creditor shall notify an obligator of the estimated amount of liquidation as prescribed in Article 4 of the Provisional Registration Security Act after the period of payment of such credit has passed, and 2 months shall pass after such notification has reached an obligator. And in such cases, if it is seen that there is no liquidation amount left, the effect shall be notified to the debtor, the obligator. And at the same time, payment of litigated amount and the acquisition of ownership has another regulations. In the previous case, a creditor shall pay an obligator an amount left by deducting the amount of a credit from the value of a secured real estate at the time when notification is made under Article 3, Paragraph 1, Subparagraph 1 of the Provisional Registration Security Act. So in this case, this is called litigation amount. And in such case, if there are rights such as senior security rights to secure real estate, an amount of credit secured by the senior security right shall be included when calculating the amount of the credit. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. The next session will be continued on the next video. 그는 정말 정현, 군주랑